This series of videos are produced by us to stimulate discussions on some relevant topics in mechanical ventilation. The intent is not to prove the superiority of one technology over another. In respiratory therapy, every technological advantage is accompanied with some disadvantage. Flow sensors, as used in mechanical ventilators, have been the subject of a great deal of study because of their impact on several important issues. The need for accuracy in measurements is recognized as important, not just as a guide to ventilation, but also because the accuracy of the readings will affect any precautions taken to prevent ventilator-induced lung injuries. Most studies have focused on the types of flow sensors. This is a presentation that will examine the influence of the position in which the flow sensors are placed. We will first examine the basic principles and terminologies of the two systems, and then observe a machine of each of the differing technologies. This is a typical configuration for mechanical ventilation. You have the ventilator, the breathing circuit, and the Y-piece. There is an inspiratory limb shown in green and an expiratory limb shown in orange. Clinicians need to know as precisely as possible the flow of gas into and out of the lungs. These are the green and orange arrows. This information is important, as said earlier, due to their being the biggest indicators for the clinician on the direction and respiratory effectiveness of therapy. This has given rise to the terminology inspiratory tidal volume and exhaled tidal volume. As we will see, different technologies have defined this differently. These measurements are arrived at using flow sensors. The differences in technology arise from the position in which the ventilators place them to measure flow and thereby volume. There are two approaches taken by ventilator manufacturers to position the flow sensor. The great majority position the flow sensor inside the ventilator. Some of the more recent ones, and those needing to measure small volumes precisely, for example neonatal and pediatric ventilators, place the flow sensor in a patient proximal position. Let us look at each of the approaches. First, the in-ventilator measuring systems. Here, there are two flow sensors used, which are shown in yellow. One is on the inspiratory side and another is on the expiratory side. The flow sensor on the inspiratory side measures the volume leaving the ventilator. Although it is called the inspiratory tidal volume, please note that this is not the volume that reaches the patient. Similarly, the flow sensor on the expiratory side measures the volume of gas going past the expiratory valve. Although some machines call this the exhaled tidal volume, this is not the volume of gas that the patient exhales. Intuitively, we expect the inspiratory tidal volume to be the volume of gas that enters the patient's lungs and the exhaled tidal volume to be the volume of gas that the patient exhales. What is it that can cause discrepancies to arise between what the machine shows and what we expect intuitively? Well, there are a few unmeasured factors that will cause this. For example, some part of the volume of gas that leaves the machine will be lost due to the compliance of the circuit. Pressurizing the circuit and the distensibility of the tubings, etc., will cause some part of the gas to be absorbed by the circuit. Humidification with the attendant heating or condensation will be a factor that causes expansion and contraction of volume. Leaks in the circuit up to the Y-piece tube will affect the volume that actually reaches the patient. The circuit compliance is measured at one point of time by the ventilator, but this will vary with time, circuit changes, etc. The others are not measured. Without knowing these three errors, some of the ventilators do compliance compensation using complex algorithms to arrive at the inspiratory tidal volume. This is the estimated volume corrected for the several unmeasured and unknown factors. Similarly, on the exhalation side, there is another set of algorithms to estimate the volume of the gas exhaled by the patient. The ventilators that measure the flow and therefore the volume are of two types. There are some that do not do compliance compensation. They merely report the gas volume that leaves the machine and the gas volume that flows past the exhalation valve. These are clearly different from the volumes that the patient takes in or exhales. To institute lung protective measures based on these volumes and flows may not be the most optimum or even safe. Then there are the others who do measure flow and volume inside the ventilators but are applying very complex algorithms to estimate what the patient may have received and exhaled. The corrections are made based on estimates of the errors. Of several factors that may lead to errors, only one is compensated for: compliance. Some of these ventilators also recommend that if the readings appear to be aberrant or very unusual, to turn off the compliance compensation correction. It is not always easy to second guess the values shown, and there is no definitive guide to all the situations where the values shown on the ventilator may be erroneous. Instituting lung protective measures based on these volumes and flows too must, as always, be done with careful interpretation. The third and most recent solution that came up was to bypass all these errors and measure right before the endotracheal tube or mask. This leaves behind it all the issues of circuit compliance, circuit leaks, etc. This patient proximal location came up first in those that required very precise measurements, and also in neonatal and pediatric applications where it was necessary to be precise, especially since you were dealing with very low volumes and flows. The value of inspiratory tidal volume was now not measured far from the patient. It was only the compliance and resistance of the ET tube that would reduce the volume and flow going to the patient. The exhale tidal volume would be similarly representing the volume that has exited the ET tube fairly close to what the patient would have actually exhaled. Placing the flow sensor in a patient proximal position. This has afforded some advantages. In addition, the terminology used in the two systems differ considerably. Machines with proximal flow sensors measure flow and therefore volumes just before gas enters the endotracheal tube or mask and just after it leaves them. What the machine measures and what we really want to know is now the same. The inspiratory tidal volume, as measured by the machine, is the volume entering the ET tube or mask. The exhale tidal volume measured is the volume leaving the lungs via the ET tube or mask. The inspiratory and expiratory tidal volumes will have a small mismatch in all systems. This is on account of there being an accuracy level associated with any measurements. Generally, a plus or minus 10% accuracy is acceptable. Now we will look at two ventilators, one which measures flow inside the ventilator and the other which uses a proximal flow sensor. When we look at the two technologies side by side, we can see that the terminologies differ and how the actual measurements are done differently. The in-ventilator measuring machines are of two types. The ones that read and report values of flow and volume from within the machine, these are the non-compliance compensating ventilators, and the ones that read from within the ventilator but estimate for unknown errors to give an idea of what may be happening at the patient. These are the compliance compensating ventilators. Then there are those that are patient proximal. The inspiratory and exhale tidal volumes have differing meanings in each system. Understanding this is important as flow and volumes affect the direction of therapy and its safety profoundly. The proximal flow sensor gives the more intuitively understood data. The in-machine measurements require secondary reinterpretation of all the data by the user. This is a machine with two flow sensors inside the machine. We have connected up the ventilator to a test lung that allows us to see the actual inflation of the lung. This ventilator has two flow sensors, one each on the expiratory side and the inspiratory side. Let us have a look at the standard settings used to test the performance. The mode is pressure control ventilation. We see the circuit pressure is 30 cm H2O, a result of a PEEP setting of 5 and a pressure stroke of 25 cm H2O. The I time setting is about 2.5 seconds. The inspired tidal volume of approximately 490 ml is that which is measured leaving the machine. The exhale tidal volume of 446 ml is that which is estimated leaving the patient's lungs. The minute volume is about 4.5 liter per minute. The user can also set the minute volume alarms. The test lung 2 shows an inflation taking place of approximately 500 ml. We also have the ability to intentionally create a circuit leak. Let us now introduce a circuit leak. This is reflected in not much of a volume reduction as it is a pressure controlled breath. Driving to attain the target pressure will cause the desired target to be delivered to the lung. The lung, even now, is receiving and exhaling approximately 500 ml. However, where things become alarming is when we try to rely on the monitored data. The inspired tidal volume shows over 1000 ml, more than double the actual volume going into the lung. The exhale tidal volume is 280 ml, nearly half the actual volume. The minute volume has reduced by over 30% and falling, in spite of there being really no change. We are relying on, as discussed earlier, the ventilator's volume data to direct therapy and also to prevent ventilator-induced lung injury. Clearly, using either the inspiratory tidal volume or the exhale tidal volume is fraught with risks whenever there is an instability in the system, like leaks, etc. Let us now look at the performance of a ventilator that has a patient proximal flow sensor. We have made similar settings. However, note that the inspiratory and expiratory tidal volume are both nearly the same, around 500 ml. The I time is 2.5 seconds and the achieved pressure is 30 cm H2O. Now, we will introduce a circuit leak. As you can see, because the mode is pressure control, the lung will tend to inflate to nearly the same level. When we see the monitored data, we see that there is an indication that there is a circuit leak, which is especially useful as the inspiratory and expiratory tidal volume are still pretty much the same. As you can see, the alarm alerted us to search for a circuit leak while showing us the true ongoing ventilation data. As we eliminate the leak, the system reverses itself. We will now try to create a proximal leak, that is, on the ET tube side or the mask side. We will create a rather extreme situation to dramatize the reaction of the ventilator. Please understand that minor manifestations of this condition may go unrecognized. We will now disconnect to create a leak on the ET tube side. When we disconnect completely on the ET tube side, we see that there is a large inspiratory tidal volume reading and a 0 reading for exhale tidal volume. Ultimately, a minute volume alarm does come into play. What is important to know is that there is no way to differentiate a leak that occurs due to a leak on the ET tube side or from the circuit side, and this has implications for lung protective strategies. We will now observe the effect of an ET side leak on the monitored data when the ventilator uses a patient proximal sensor. The readings of inspiratory and expiratory tidal volumes do not show the presence of a leak. Now, when we introduce a disconnection on the ET side, we observe that there is no rise and fall of the lung. This is expected. There is gas flow towards the ET tube, but due to disconnection, it does not travel to the lungs. We would expect to see an inspiratory tidal volume and little or no exhale tidal volume. On the ventilator, we see there is a higher inspiratory tidal volume of around 750 ml and no exhale tidal volume. Very usefully, you also see an ET tube leak alarm. This correctly points you to the probable site of the problem. Once we reconnect and the integrity of the circuit is established, you can see that the alarm disappears and the two tidal volumes come to more normal values. Two issues are sometimes brought up in relation to patient proximal sensors, that they might cause problems in patients with secretions and that they might cause problems because they add to the dead space. Let us look at these individually. An issue that has been discussed in the context of proximal flow sensors is the possibility of occlusion or malfunction of the sensor by copious sputum production. Copious or thick secretions are acknowledged as causing endotracheal tube occlusions and HME soiling or occlusion. These are recognized as being caused by inappropriate humidification like excessive or deficient gas temperature or delayed suctioning. These are the same causes that apply to flow sensor. Instituting appropriate humidification and as needed suctioning is relevant and needed even for the correct functioning of endotracheal tubes and HMEs. The flow sensor's visible behavior is an indicator of a much more serious condition existing inside the patient. Such an early warning indicator would not be available with the use of flow sensors located inside the machine. As compared to adult ventilation, in pediatric and neonatal therapy, much smaller volumes are used. And it is an established practice today that invasive ventilation should not be done without a patient proximal flow or volume sensor. Since the contribution of the volume of the flow sensor to the overall dead space is much less in adult ventilation, the value of the benefit afforded to the risk is, by logic, much better. As they say, don't try what we have shown at home, even with your home care ventilators. But do try this on ventilators you have in your ICU to understand them better. We would be happy to receive your videos if you have any interesting observations. We will study them and may carry it on our Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter pages.